Information shared on the following program is for general information purposes only. It does not constitute legal, tax, investment, or other advice, nor is it intended to recommend any particular investments, products, or financial instruments. Always seek advice from your financial advisor, attorney, or accountant with regard to investment, legal, or tax questions.
Want to know what King Tut and the financial world have in common? Well, apparently, neither got the memo that you can't take it with you.
Welcome to the only show in the country dedicated to helping savers worry less about money, the Worry-Free Retirement, with your host, best-selling author and fiduciary, Tony Walker.
Tutankhamun, or better known as King Tut, was a young Egyptian pharaoh with a very brief reign. Gaining the throne in 1342 BC as a 9-year-old, King Tut died 9 years later, ending his kingdom at the ripe young age of 18. And while his life was short-lived, his burial granted him a legacy as one of the greatest archaeological finds in human history when in 1922, archaeologist Howard Carter discovered King Tut's tomb. The tomb, which not only included King Tut, but many of his most valuable possessions, has since attracted millions and millions of curious onlookers to this very unusual exhibit, which begs the question, why in blue blazes would King Tut try to take it with him? And what does his take on life and money have to do with that of the financial world? Well, welcome, folks, to the Worry-Free Retirement. And yes, I am that little man in the sweater vest, archaeological financial specialist and fiduciary, Tony Walker. And not to be outdone by Howard Carter's discovery of King Tut's tomb, we at Worry-Free Productions did a little digging around of our own and stumbled across Steve Martin's classic on SNL, the skit 1978 about King Tut, and we wanted to delicately pay homage to it with the intro to this episode. So most importantly, we wish to thank America's favorite financial sidekick, Mr. Aaron Orender, for being such a good sport, and apologize to Aaron, but that we had to outfit him in an extra large. That was the only thing apparently Gina could dig up.
Sorry, Aaron. It's all I could find.
Okay, let's set the stage. We have an 18-year-old king who apparently had as his goal in life a firm belief which someone shared with him along the way. That is, that he could really take this stuff with him by stockpiling it and trying to preserve it in a very secure tomb. And to some degree, as evidenced by all of the millions and millions of people who have witnessed King Tut's exhibit, it worked. Problem is, King Tut never really got to enjoy any of it, which is the problem I see today. Hardworking savers slaving away for 30 or 40 years, working hard and saving hard into their 401k plans or other retirement accounts, trying to pay off all those debts, putting their kids through school, and all along trying to preserve their wealth so that they can take it with them. In the end, they one day wake up to realize that they can't. You see, folks, after working in this field for more than 36 years and personally meeting with over 15,000 savers, many of whom are retired or nearing retirement, and trying to preserve what they've worked so hard to create, my biggest and most important financial archaeological discovery is why we tend to forget to use our money while we still can. It's a shock to me. So what I want you to do is stay tuned as I exhibit the best way to take control of your money and why having a game plan to use and enjoy this money and yet preserve your money is the best philosophy to a worry-free retirement. I'm Tony Walker. I'll be right back. Have you recently retired, been laid off, or offered a pension buyout? Has the company you work for moved, been acquired, or closed its doors forever? And finally, do you have a 401k with a previous employer you'd like to move to safer territory? Then take advantage of this opportunity to move your 401k or lump sum pension to Tony Walker Financial. Let's meet in person to discuss your retirement options. Log on now to TonyWalkerFinancial.com to schedule your free, no obligation appointment. Let us help you today. Our Live Well, Die Broke moment is someone I've never met, an 89-year-old billionaire, or shall I say former billionaire, who truly understands the concept of live well, die broke. The co-founder of retail giant duty-free shoppers, a gentleman by the name of Chuck Feeney, had this as his goal: to give away his billions, listen closely, before he dies. And according to this article, it appears Mr. Feeney pulled it off. His reaction? He couldn't be happier. You see, folks, money's a funny thing, and this constant message coming from the King Tut financial world to hold on to it, to preserve it for as long as possible, is quite silly and sometimes futile at best. I mean, when you think about it, all of this hard work and all of this stockpiling of your money boils down to this ending happening in one of two ways. Number one, either you preserve it and hold on to it and die with it, like King Tut, or, like Mr. Feeney, you use and enjoy it, possibly even giving it to others while you're alive, and die without it. Now, don't get me wrong, notice here that Mr. Feeney was smart enough to keep back a couple of $1 million in his pocket to live on. And while $2 million is certainly not chump change, I think it reminds us that depending on your needs and your wants, we all only need so much money. The thing I've discovered in watching my clients' lives play out as they grow older is that over time, they actually need less and less money, not more. This is why I came up with what I call the 3 halves of life. And I want to take a look at this and notice what happens as you progress through these various phases. Now, first of all, in this first half of life, we like to call that the protection phase. So this would be somebody of Aaron's age, for instance. Maybe you're in your 30s, your 40s. You're trying to raise a family. You're trying to pay off debt. You're trying to pay for private school. You're just trying to make ends meet, and you're trying to save money. Well, obviously, this is a huge component because in these years, you have to protect your income. This is why we recommend people buy life insurance and disability insurance to protect those future earnings. That's why you need to kind of start thinking of safeguarding some of your money and protecting it through Roth IRAs and things like that. So that's called the protection phase, and it makes a whole lot of sense in the first half. Now, as we slide over to what I call halftime, now this is different for different people. Usually it ranges in age from the late 50s to the late 60s. Now, what is unique about halftime, and why do we call this phase of life the use and enjoy phase? Well, because these are the years normally, I know we're recording this show in December of 2020 during a pandemic, but normally these are the years when you can really enjoy your money. Think about it. These are years generally that the kids might be out of the house. Most of your debts are paid for. Maybe you have stockpiled a little bit of money and you want to use and enjoy it before it's too late. You might want to travel. You might want to start giving things to the kids or doing things for charity or whatever. But this normally is a wonderful phase to start actually using and enjoying your money. The problem is the financial tuts of the world, what they're going to tell you is, no, you better hold on to it because later on in life, you're surely going to need more and more of it, which is ludicrous. So now let's move over to what I call the second half of life. Now, normally, sure, this could be called the preservation stage, but at Tony Walker Financial, we look at this phase totally different. The financial world wants you to keep stockpiling and stockpiling and stockpiling because they have this fear that they build in that you could run out of money, that you got to take more risks, the nursing homes could come and get it. You don't want to die and not leave your kids any money, whatever those arguments are, and it creates a lot of fear in the minds of savers. At Tony Walker Financial, as you'll notice, the money intentionally starts going down. You spend less and less money, and with our split IRA concept, we make sure to put on the back end of your money those beloved annuities so that we can provide mailbox money so that you don't run out of it. So folks, if you don't have anything like this, if you're sitting there right now saying, well, Tony, I haven't thought about the difference between protection and preservation. And I've never really thought about this concept of living well and dying broke and what this gentleman's doing and using and enjoying the money now, whether before it's too late. Well, if not, why not? Let me invite you to go to Tony Walker Financial right now. We've got all kinds of tools and educational opportunities where you can learn more about our philosophy at Tony Walker Financial. And assuming you're a saver and you're one of those folks that's more concerned about the return of your money than on it, I'd invite you to click on that Let's Get Started button, or you can even conduct a 10-minute free fiduciary phone call with either myself or our other trained fiduciaries to help you think through what it is you're looking for and how we might be able to help. Log on now at TonyWalkerFinancial.com or call the toll-free number on your screen. Well, when we come back, I'm going to make this correlation between what does King Tut's desire to feel like he can take it with him and that of the financial world have in common. When I come back, I'm going to talk about the financial system out there, what's wrong with it, and how you can avoid something called the pyramid of misdirection. I'm Tony Walker. I'll be right back. It is estimated that each day over 10,000 people will turn 65, which means a lot of advisors selling a lot of annuities. Don't get stuck in the wrong annuity. Get a second opinion from TonyWalkerFinancial.com.
Call me old-fashioned, but I love the fact that my husband takes care of all the finances. But if something happened to him, where would I turn?
The grief associated with losing a spouse is hard enough. Don't make matters worse by not having a written game plan.
Don't leave your future to chance. Get a game plan now with one of the most experienced and trusted names in the business. Log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com. That's TonyWalkerFinancial.com.
Speaking of buried treasure and discovering a hidden gold mine, boy, I was recently fortunate enough to discover my own King Tut gold mine when I randomly received this fax from Avant-Garde Wealth Consulting Services from one of their advisors, a man by the name of Moran Bart. And boy, did I hit the jackpot. You see, according to this notice, Mr. Bart had a client by the name of Thomas Walker, who years ago apparently died along with his family during an earthquake in China in 2008. Anyway, it appears that a safe deposit box containing $9.3 million was in the name of Mr. Bart and this Mr. Walker. So all I have to do is contact Mr. Bart, and he's going to release the vault, as it says here, to me, and he will share the $9 million that it contains with Lucky Tony. Well, of course, folks, this is a hoax, but one that is promising something that deep down we might fall for because what? We all think we need more money. Oops, I just noticed something. It says, Mr. Bart tells me, I urge you to keep this proposal in utmost confidentiality pending our discussion. So don't tell anybody I read that to you, folks. All right, in case you're just now joining us, we're talking about something I call the pyramid of misdirection. This notion that people become convinced by another party that you really can take it with you. So I think at this point, we must ask, where and how did this notion start in the mind of some king more than 2,000 years ago, and today for hardworking savers who fall into this trap of really thinking they can preserve what they've taken a lifetime to create? Well, here's the culprit. I call it King Tut Financial. You see, there are really 4 financial institutions whose goal in life it is to convince you and I that we don't have enough money, so for our future we should just stockpile it with them and trust them with our money. To preserve it, we're going to have some future date out there that they're going to hold on to this money so me and my loved ones can enjoy it. In other words, we're going to bury it in their financial tomb. So let's take a look at what happens to your money and how they preserve it for them as much as they do for you. Well, first of all, let's talk about banks. They're one of the big boys that holds on to the money. And again, all of these folks, we need them in our society. Let me make something clearer. I use all of these types of institutions and the products. The point is, their job is to take your money, invest it, and make money on that money, and then give you something in return. It's perfectly legal. The problem is, they're not sitting around thinking about how they're going to get you this money. Don't believe me? Try this on for size. Call your advisor or call that custodian and act like you're going to drag that money out of there. See how quickly they react and sometimes try to talk you out of it. Remember, folks, this is your money. So banks obviously make money on your money through interest, and right now they're not paying a lot of interest. This is why many people are moving their CDs over to Tony Walker Financial. And yes, we're using fixed annuities for these products because they're paying currently, as of the date of this recording, very, very high interest rates on a guaranteed basis. That leads us to the next institution, which are insurance companies. Now, in the investment world, mainly insurance companies are working with life insurance, which includes cash value, guaranteed universal life, index universal life, and of course long-term care and annuities. So again, the same thing. They work just like banks. You give them your money, they turn around and invest it, they take what's called a spread off that money, and they give you what they can. Now, the problem with insurance companies, many of them are having the same problems of banks. You see, insurance companies invest in things like government bonds, corporate bonds, very safe assets, but with low interest rates, they're having trouble paying high interest rates. So certainly you need to understand that insurance companies, in order to remain solvent and to protect your money, are not going to pay you a lot of money on your money, which leads to our next source, and what a lot of people are starting to move over to for the various reasons we just discussed, Wall Street. You know, right now, folks, as we record this show, the Dow's at an all-time high. We're going to have a new president, it looks like, possibly a new Congress. We have debt going out the nose. We have a lot of uncertainty about this pandemic and the fallout from that from years to come. So who knows? But again, many people are concerned with low interest rates. So what I'm seeing them doing, they're risking a lot of their money, some of them unnecessarily, by putting it over in Wall Street. Now, why do they do this? Because they don't have a game plan. They're assuming that you have to grow your money and put it at risk in order to enjoy it in retirement, and nothing could be further from the truth. And then finally, we have the government. And although you could say, well, yeah, taxes, right? They need our money through taxes, but you have to understand, the government issues bonds, so we have a lot of people through our Charles Schwab platform, me included, that invest in government bonds because for the most part, they are safe. But again, bonds are not paying a lot. Interest rates are low. And if you look at what's going on with our deficits, not to get too complicated here, my concern is because this country has so much debt, what is it, 30 trillion now or something crazy, they're going to have to keep interest rates low in order to pay back that debt, which means if you've got money with the government right now in government bonds, you're probably not going to earn a lot of money. So as I think through the whole situation with King Tut Financial, how can you, in your own world, with the live well, die broke philosophy, how can you attack this world and say, I want more control over it? Well, you've got to understand something called the pyramid of misdirection. You see, folks, you're listening to a lot of advice from a financial world that may or may not have your best interest at heart. Their job, they are generally not fiduciaries, they are custodians of your money. There's a huge difference between a fiduciary who's doing planning for you and a custodian who happens to be holding on to the money, trying to make money on your money. So let's take a look at the 5 areas of misdirection. Well, one of those is more risk. Now, here's my concern. We talked about this last week. It's called the Rule of 100. The Rule of 100 basically says that you take the number 100 minus your age, let's say you're age 60, and that leaves you with 40. So that means, as Wall Street would tell you, that means you need to put 40% of your money in the market or at risk. Well, what they're saying now is, you know what, since you're living longer, we've now gone to the rule of 120. Since they think you might live longer, you're actually supposed to take more risk, which, when you think about it, that makes little to no sense because the longer you have your money at risk, potentially, the more likely you are to lose it in my ball game. Number 2, more money. Our show's really topic has been that. We have been taught from day one by the financial world that you've got to have more and more money, especially as you get into what I call the second half of life. And again, that is just not the case. As somebody who has well over 2,500 clients, many of whom are retired, many of whom are well into the second half of life, I can tell you by experience that unless we're talking about a catastrophic health issue, for the most part, the majority of those people spend less and less as you get older. You won't need more and more money, folks, as you get older, and we can show you how that works when we meet. The third thing is more magic. You know, it's something that people come into me all the time, and for some reason they've been taught that they have to have a magic number in order to retire. That magic number for some is $500,000, some $1 million. Earlier we talked about the billionaire Mr. Keeney. His magic number was $2 million, right? Because he gave everything away, but he still wanted to keep $2 million. There's also the magic number of when you take Social Security. Some say 62, some say full retirement, some say 70. Folks, there is no such thing as a magic number. What you need is a plan. The plan will help you determine the numbers. Don't be fooled by a magic number. Number 4, more cost. You know, money's a funny thing, and we talked about earlier the law of diminishing returns. What happens through the law of diminishing returns, as you accumulate more and more money, what's strange about that phenomenon is you actually create more cost. Let's take a money manager charging 1.5%. Let's say you have $100,000 with the money manager. They're charging 1.5% a year. That means they take $1,500 a year, whether you make money or not. Well, let's say you have $500,000, right? And you got it at risk, more risk. That doesn't matter because there's more fees. Now that same money manager, rather than charging $1,500, charges 1.5% of $500,000 or $7,500. What about your IRA or 401k? It's growing and growing and growing, and you got this tax tumor in there. The problem is, the longer you leave it there, the more it grows, the bigger the tax tumor. You see the problem, folks. More money usually creates more cost. And finally, through all of this, here you are working up this pyramid, doing everything everybody says that you should do, trying to follow the rules, trying to play by the rules, working hard, saving hard. And in the end, most of these financial institutions still instill fear. Now, why do they instill fear? Why do they have this fear of running out of money or going in a nursing home or not providing for your kids like you should? Well, they do that so you'll keep the money with them and become complacent. Folks, with the Worry-Free Retirement, there's nothing to fear. Most of my clients don't have a lot of fear going on because they have a written game plan. So if you feel like you've kind of been misdirected with your money, give us an opportunity to talk. Log on right now to TonyWalkerFinancial.com. Click on that Let's Get Started, or better yet, if you like, set up a free 10-minute fiduciary phone call with myself or one of our well-trained fiduciaries. Well, what does the Bible have to say about stockpiling money, even food, for the future? Some really good stuff coming your way. Let me get another cup of coffee. You're watching the Worry-Free Retirement. I'll be right back. Looking to roll over your 401k? Then log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com and learn just how easy it is to roll over and safeguard your 401k. Do it today. Years ago, one of my clients who had concerns over a future food shortage encouraged me to consider stockpiling boxed food so that if all heck broke loose in this country, me and my family would at least have some food that would stand the test of time. Made complete sense to me, so I asked her what type of food she was storing up for the future. Her response, this, which I gladly took home, she gave me a box by the way, and stored home for safe keeping for some future event. Of course, when we decided to do this show on King Tut, I drug out this box of food, again, thinking that my cherished food would last forever. However, upon closer examination, I was shocked to discover that this box of food had already expired.
That's a shame.
Discouraged by my expired box of food, I quickly rummaged through our home's pantry to confirm that the shelf life of my beloved minute rice would also have a shelf life that would be for years to come, only to find out that it too is going to expire in short order. So much for stockpiling stuff up for the future. But you know, this notion of trying to store up stuff for the future and take it with us has been around as long as King Tut tried to pull it off in 1342 BC. Yet, if only we might consider the words of Jesus, where in one of the most famous verses of Scripture on stockpiling stuff for the future comes to us in Matthew 6:19, where he says, "Do not lay up for yourselves treasures upon earth, where moth and rust destroy and where thieves break in and steal." Doesn't sound much like the financial world, does it? The truth is that Jesus is sharing with us this message. The more you try to stockpile and preserve things for the future, the more likely it is that the things of the world will eat away at it. In the world of finance, we call this law the law of diminishing returns. This means that the more and more you hold on to things, the longer you hold on to them, actually the less and less they are worth. That's because things will eat away at it. You've got fees, inflation, taxes, insurance premiums, the cost of health care, and worse yet, fading away in a nursing home someday. So regardless of how much you have and how long you live, the fact remains, sooner or later, the world is going to eat your lunch. You know, James 5:2 talks about this too when he says, "Your riches have rotted, your garments have become moth-eaten." Even more callously, he says in the first part of the next verse, "Your gold and your silver have rusted." So much for calling the guy on late night TV encouraging to load up on gold and silver. Apparently, you can't take that with you either. So how are we at Tony Walker Financial so different from King Tut Financial out there? Well, basically, it's our philosophy of live well, die broke. One that includes the realization that you can't take it with you and that this money needs to be enjoyed today rather than stockpiling it for tomorrow. So who is it we tend to help at Tony Walker Financial? Well, let me share a brief list of those types of savers that can truly benefit from our services. First, those who are already retired or those nearing retirement. Second, those who may be years away from retirement, however, they have recently been laid off, changed jobs, or whatever the situation might be, and they have a 401k at their former employer that they would like us to manage for them. And then you've got, of course, savers who are very frustrated with these low CD and money market rates. We can earn you a much higher return currently as we record this show on December 2nd, 2020. Rates much higher and just as safe as CDs. So feel free to let us know if we can help you there. Currently, by the way, as again of the recording of this show, our rates are at 3% guaranteed with guaranteed principal to boot. And then you might have some people out there that have received an inheritance, maybe eligible for a lump sum pension, or just wanting to roll over their 401k to a local fiduciary who can provide them a written game plan to show them how to use and enjoy this money before it's too late. Whatever your situation, might I suggest you visit us in one of two ways. First, you can have a free 10-minute fiduciary phone call with myself or one of our other well-trained fiduciaries, or if you like, and if it warrants, I would be happy to meet with you in person at either our Bowling Green, Louisville, or Lexington, Kentucky offices. Take advantage of this offer. It's absolutely free, and we will be happy to put together for you a free written game plan. Well, we hope you've enjoyed today's program. We look forward to seeing you next week on the Worry-Free Retirement. But you remember, between now and then, if all else fails, you be worry-free. Make it a good one.